we are imbibing all of these ideas about what it is to be a good woman, even if we say, no way, that's not me, I unsubscribe. And that's
right.
So much of the feedback to the book is from women who say, oh, my friend gave me this book and insisted I read it. And I was like, oh, this isn't me. I'm not a good girl. And then I started reading and said, oh, I don't have anything about minding me. I don't have anything about sloth. Like, that's not me. And then realize, oh my God.
All of us have been down that dusty road. I can guarantee it. The following podcast is a Healthy Dog production. Welcome to the Healthy Dog Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Nigma Talib. I'm a leading naturopathic doctor now for over 20 years, and I've consulted thousands of patients with chronic illnesses. I've had clinics all over the world, and I have a #1 bestseller, Younger Skin Starts in the Gut. Listen, I know there's a lot of health information out there in the health and wellness world, and it can be a bit overwhelming. So I'm here to set the record straight and give you my expertise along with my expert guests here in studio in sunny Los Angeles.
I only take drugs with other people who take them on a regular basis because I don't have time for that.
A lot of chronic diseases stem from mitochondrial dysfunction.
Yes. And you know what I love talking about, right? Poop.
Yes. You can ask me about my poop?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about poop.
Okay, please.
This podcast is your go-to for achieving optimal wellness from the best of beauty and longevity and everything in between, because after all, wellness comes from the inside out. Welcome to the Healthy Dog Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Nigma Talib. Today, my guest, she is a good friend, and boy, she's a walking chat GPT. She has immense knowledge, and there's seriously not enough time in this podcast to go over what she's written in her book and what she has to say. You might recognize her if you've seen the Goop lab on Netflix, or if you used to listen to the Goop podcast back in the day. She was on there. She's also ghostwritten 12 books. And thankfully now she's written her own book, and it's called On Our Best Behavior: The 7 Deadly Sins and Price Women Pay to Be Good. And by the way, she's a New York Times bestseller, and I'm so proud of her. Please welcome my guest, Elise Loehnen.
Princess, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for being here.
I love being called a chat GPT. I'm going to take that on the road. It's my new email signature.
I love it. And you've also stolen my dog as well, by the way.
For a chat GPT. So now people will know I'm not an automaton or a computer. Animals like me.
Animals do like you. Dante definitely loves you. I want to welcome you, my good girl.
Oh, thank you. I know it's still a good girl as much as I try to be bad.
I've seen you naughty at times. Can you talk a little bit? I mean, I know you intimately as a good friend of yours, and we've had our walks together, and I remember you sharing with me the new book idea, and then all of a sudden you had a book. I was just floored when I read it. I mean, isn't it crazy how it just happened? It was like 2020, and then you wrote your book, and boom, we were at your book launch.
Do you feel like it's a function of getting older where every day is a smaller percentage of your total life, and that's why it feels like it's going so fast? I don't know what's happening, but I agree with you. It feels not that long ago that I was working on the proposal, and now the book has been out for more than a year. What is time, Nigma? Let's talk.
What is time? Oh my gosh, that's that's stuff that you and I talk about on our walks. We can talk about it here too.
No, but it's wild how fast it goes. And also, to be fair, one, I'm a pretty efficient writer, but still the book did take me a long time compared to some of my other projects. But I also feel like I'd been working on it my entire life.
You have, but you also didn't get you didn't have a ghostwriter. Like, no. You did your own work. And I think you grew up, from what I remember from our conversations, like reading books. Yes. Like you didn't, you grew up in Montana, you were in nature, you were in the woods, you're really connected. And I think for you, writing a book is just something natural. So I don't, it's not like for other people that really need to position themselves.
No, I think that's fair. I also, though, it's funny how many books I needed to write before I could write my own book. in part because, like many women, I struggle with this sense of authority and who am I to write a book and who am I to think that I have anything interesting to say, and I don't have a PhD and I don't have an advanced degree, and so on and so forth. All the ways that we can talk ourselves out of showing up fully in the world. I participated in that for most of my life and felt very comfortable standing behind other people, standing behind other brands, helping other people bring their ideas into the world. And to be fair, I still like to do that. And I think there's a lot of value to that. And I am a little sad that it took me so long to actually even open myself up to the idea of writing my own book. I wish I'd done it maybe a few years earlier. Who knows? Who knows? I mean, I don't live life with regret. And to be fair, yes, I grew up reading. I venerate books. They're at the center of my life and all of my work. And I love, quote unquote, thinking with writers and people who are sharing with the world. And so I think I had a lot of anxiety about trying to enter that pantheon. I never thought of myself as a writer, even though that is actually, I am by trade.
You are, and a very good one, may I add. Can you tell my listeners, I know a lot of my listeners know who you are. They listen to your podcast, Pulling the Thread. Can you give us a background? I know I introduced you, but give us a little bit more about your background and where you came from.
Yeah, so I am from Missoula, Montana, which is a small town. Although Montana is a massive state, it's not that densely populated. So I come from one of the cities. And Montana is a fascinating country. It was for a long time a purple state. Missoula is a college town. It's quite liberal and progressive, but you're also in a very rural environment. So there's lots of outsiders in a way. There's no prevailing culture in a way that I think really informed me as a child to be an observer of lots of different people doing life very differently. And I had a lot of curiosity about that. And I'm really grateful now to have a really expanded view on what it is to be human and how different value sets are formed and how people express those in the world and the beauty in all of those different ways of life. I grew up outside of town in the country, and which is funny. I mean, it was 20 minutes from town, but quite remote, actually. And I grew up with horses and chickens and dogs and cats. And I spent most of my life, when I wasn't at this little progressive hippie school, hanging out outside, going for rides in the woods on my horse. It feels very far from my life today, but it was a really special way to grow up. And I went, everything about my life is both kind of strange and then absolutely not exceptional, if that makes sense. So I went to boarding school, which is a weird move to go to boarding school from Montana, and it's not my family legacy or anything like that. But I went to boarding school and I went to Yale and studied English and fine arts and then became a magazine editor. And worked at Condé Nast for a really long time before I moved to Los Angeles with my husband. And I worked at this big internet company, and then I met Gwyneth Paltrow when she moved to Los Angeles from London.
And that's how we met.
And yeah, at that point, Goop was the newsletter with some products, some special collaboration products, but it wasn't at all what it eventually became. And so then that became a big chapter of my LA life until 2020, was building that company and leading that content team. And that was really fun. And I met really interesting people and, did a TV show, which was not on my bingo card. And I can't say that it is on any of my bingo cards going forward. But that was wild to do mushrooms on camera as a mom live in Brentwood.
Sounds very accurate.
Very accurate. But, I'm here for the experiences. And then, I was a ghostwriter. And then in 2020, I decided to write my own book and no longer left Goop and have been doing my own thing. hosting my own podcast and writing books and just, trying to think about this larger context for this world that we live in, and how do you create a context that's large enough for all of us, and how do we really understand who we are in a way that's truly inclusive? Because I think we're in such a strange moment in time where it's like, let's just exclude all the people and all the parts of this that we don't like. And
Right.
That's not what this is about. We're all here.
We're all here. And it's really interesting when I hear about your journey and in terms of how you got to writing the book. That really interested me because I think it started in 2016, right? When the election was that part of your idea around trying to figure this out? Like,
Yes.
Why is this happening
Yes.
to our society?
Yeah. And having written so many books for other people, and my brother is a book editor, he has an imprint. This is just, books are a huge part of my life. And, a lot of people say they want to write a book, and I would say, sure, as long as you like reading and as long as you have a big enough question that you're trying to answer, because you don't want to write sort of a small book or a book that could be an article. And that was one of the reasons I think it took me so long to write a book, is that I didn't want to just write a book. I wanted to really engage with a massive question. And I really wanted to understand, and there were many ways that my book emerged out of various questions in my life. But after 2016, before the election, I felt, I don't know if we could elect a woman, in part because women have so much trouble getting on side with other women and getting behind other women.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to understand what that was about. Not, sure, diagnosing culture and watching it happen around me and watching women say, I just don't like her. She rubs me the wrong way. Does she think she is? And not to say that people are not allowed to be critical of her or her policies. But with women, it's personal. It's always personal. It's always about her. I don't like her. I can't really say you anything.
For no reason. There's not like a political reason. There's more like there's just something I don't like her. And a lot of women do that.
Yes.
We see that, unfortunately.
All the time. And so observing that, and I wasn't even going so far as to say, oh, these women are voting again. I don't know what everyone's best, quote unquote, best interests are. But just watching that mechanism alone for me was really interesting. What is it? What is it in us that is not only where we allow that level of projection is what I, felt like it was. And what is it that allows that to sort of run so rampantly, and why can't we see that or address it? And I know that many of us see it, but I really wanted to understand, what is it? What is it? Because as I looked around at the culture, yes, I could identify men who are violent abusers and horrible people doing horrible things to people. Of course, certainly. We have a lot of ample evidence of that. But I couldn't say, oh, this is just men. If women were in charge here, it's the men. And if women were in charge, our world would look completely different. Because as far as I could see, women were also behaving in completely patriarchal ways.
Right.
And then the next question was, well, wait, like I use that language. What's patriarchy? And what does it mean to be patriarchal? And like, what is the patriarchy? Like all of my friends and peers, and you see it all over social media and the internet, we love to throw that word around.
Right.
And yet I realized I could offer you a basic definition, but that I didn't really understand it. I didn't know where it came from. I had assumed that it was the way things had always been and therefore would always be. I had bought into the story that men are dominant hunter-protectors. Women are passive gatherers who are really just want to raise children in a cave. And everything else is, our modern world is in some ways massively not reflective of who we're supposed to be and how we're supposed to be. So that became another question. Like, what is patriarchy? Where did it come from? Is it a foregone conclusion? Is this how we're supposed to live? And then how do we change it? Because I knew the answer to that most likely would be no, actually, we've been far more creative, far more affiliative, far more, the variability that we see in culture is not new. This is who we are. It's not that suddenly women are like, oh, I like thinking and having a career. This isn't a new our genes haven't evolved.
Right.
Different world. It's not that women are newly physical or newly sort of finding that they like running or boxing.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
or that women are like, oh, I didn't know that I could hunt, right? So that was another big part of it. But really, it was this idea of women. What is it in us?
Right.
Going back to sort of the observations about Hillary, and I could recognize it in myself that I also would shame or judge other women and get away with it in very vague ways. Like, I don't like her. I didn't think her book was that good. And who does she think she is was really what I was trying to say. Why her, not me? She's making me feel deeply uncomfortable by what she's managed to achieve. And I recognize, which was the genesis for On Our Best Behavior, that was really envy, undiagnosed envy.
Right.
And that we're just awash with envy in our culture because as women, we're taught to subjugate what we want to other people's needs. And most of us don't really think about what we want. And then when we see it reflected back at us by another woman like Hillary or someone pursuing power or really sharing their gifts with the world in a very specific way, that our reaction is, again, it's not conscious. We're like, that makes me uncomfortable. There's something here that's full of information for me, and I'm going to deprecate her to make myself feel better. And in that process, we're missing the message that this woman is doing something that we want.
Right.
Or has something that we want.
I want to share something that could literally slow down how you age, inside and out. Let's talk about hyperbaric oxygen therapy, or HBOT. You've probably heard of it being used for athletes or wound healing, but what you may not know is the latest research is showing powerful benefits for cellular regeneration, brain health, and even reversing some biological markers of aging. Hyperbaric chamber works where you breathe in oxygen at higher than normal pressure. This process stimulates your tissues with oxygen and beyond what your body can normally get in. That extra oxygen jumpstarts your cells, helps natural repair processes, reduces inflammation, and boosts collagen production. It even stimulates the growth of new blood vessels. Studies have shown improvements in telomere length, which are kind of like protective caps on your DNA that shorten as you age. Longer telomeres, that's linked to healthier aging. If you're feeling the effects of aging, maybe it's slower recovery, brain fog, or skin that's lost its luster and glow, hyperbaric oxygen might be a powerful tool to help you feel sharper, stronger, and more vibrant. Go to oxyhealth.com, that's OXYHEALTH.com, and type in discount code HEALTHYDOC10 for your first order. It's repressed anger, basically. It's the anger that's being repressed that then we're now projecting on someone else, basically.
All repressed bad feeling. And you'll notice as you start observing that with yourself, that the women who chafe your hide don't, the people who bother you are not going to be the same who bother me.
Right.
And that when you start to actually interrogate, like, what's happening? Why am I so activated by this person?
Yes.
That that there's some really vital information. I wouldn't allow myself to do that. How does she get away with that? I want that.
I learned that reading your book. It really made me more aware of it when I wasn't really aware of it. And I was like, oh, that's where that's coming from.
Yes.
Super interesting. And it's not saying you're a bad person or you're a good person. It's just human nature.
Human.
To feel that level.
And the point of the book and the reason that the subtitle is "The Price Women Pay to Be Good," is that we are conditioned. Women are conditioned for goodness, while men are conditioned for power.
Yes.
And so we have these cultural ideas. Even if we say, "I'm totally do not subscribe to this," like, it is in you. It is so deep in all of us, and we pass it on to each other. It's highly contagious. But there are these ideas about what it is to be a good woman. And a good woman is someone who is never tired. A good woman subjugates her wants to other people's needs. In fact, she's never selfish. She's most likely selfless.
Mm-hmm.
A good woman needs no affirmation, attention, or praise. A good woman has no physical hunger. She's really small, diminutive, completely under control.
Dainty.
Dainty, small. A good woman doesn't talk about money. She thinks money is base and not spiritual and really not for her. A good woman definitely doesn't have a sexual appetite. She's very desirable, Nigma.
But she can't desire.
But she's not desiring.
Desiring, yes.
Yeah, she's sexy, but not sexual. And a good woman never gets angry about any of this. That's a good woman. And I think we can all recognize that.
Yeah.
And that aligns with the 7 deadly sins.
And that's
So weird. Weird.
It's so weird because the 7 deadly sins are actually natural part of human.
Yeah.
These are like, the greed, we'll get into them in a moment, but they're just, some of these things are made to look so demonic and so negative when they're actually natural wants and needs, and this repression is turning it in. So let's go to that, because I want to discuss these 7 deadly sins and the price we pay to be good. Let's get into that. Let's go through them one at a time.
So I'm going to say this is Bible class, but it's not Bible class because they're not in the Bible. That was the other big revelation.
Right. And weren't there 8 of them?
There were 8 of them. So they were, they are to remind people. And,
right.
Or you can see the movie 7.
Yes.
That's another way to learn about the sins.
That's where I learned about it, really.
Right? Sloth, pride, envy, greed, gluttony, lust, anger. And as you said, originally they were 8. And they came out of the Egyptian desert in the 4th century.
Mm-hmm.
This monk named Evagrius Ponticus.
Yeah.
Who is also credited as an early father of the Enneagram.
I know. I read that.
Yes. So each point on the Enneagram is aligned with the vice.
Right.
But it's really more in the sense of how I've come to understand the sins, which are these very human impulses that we bring into balance. And
can you talk about the Enneagram before we
talk about that? Yeah.
Before we, just for the listeners.
So the Enneagram, I'm sure many of you guys have encountered it on social media. There are a lot of memes about the Enneagram, and it's a really fascinating ancient system that dates back to Pythagoras or Evagrius Ponticus. Mm-hmm. And the Enneagram means 9 point, and it is this symbol. And there are mystics from different parts of the world who brought forth concepts of the Enneagram. This man named G.I. Gurdjieff, a Sufi mystic, used to dance the Enneagram. And there are a lot of people who are still to this day engaged in sort of his school of mystical thought. And then I think it was the 60s or 70s that this psychologist turned it into a personality system, which is how most of us learn it today. And there are a lot of really big, it was part of this it's just a really interesting, it came up in different parts of the world and then bubbled together. And now you get it in sort of the very sort of vanilla version. And then you get the deeply mystical version. But the idea is that each of us have a type of these 9 points. And then you move around the circle. Your type doesn't change, but you become more integrated and more whole and complete. And I love the system in part because once you know it, you really understand, and you understand what other people are. It gives you a really good handle on what drives them and what their tendencies are under stress. And once you know it, you can't unknow it.
It's kind of like their love language. Is it like?
I think it's like a love language. Like I'm a type 6, and type 6s are map makers. Everything is context dependent. My primary vice is fear, which is there are 9 points, and so that's the sins plus fear and vanity, essentially. So I'm the type that has fear, and that's what my system runs on in some ways. And I'm always looking to escape that.
So interesting. I haven't done it yet, so I'm interested to do it.
I'm curious to know your type, actually. You could also be a 6.
Okay.
Chelsea Handler would be an 8.
Okay.
Everything about Chelsea Handler is 8. And it also
What do you think, Dante?
like I'm trying to think of our friends. Gwyneth is a 1. You could be a 3, for example. I wouldn't be surprised.
What's a 3?
A 3 is the achiever. A lot of CEOs are 3s. They tend towards perfectionism but every type. The reason I love all types is that they're all so beautiful.
Right.
So there's no bad type. No one's sad about their type. 4s are artists. 5s are scientists. But in a way that's very like I need to know everything about everything.
Black and white.
Very black and white.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm definitely going to check that out.
Enneagram expert. I have an Enneagram expert for your podcast. There are many.
Okay.
So anyway, so Evagrius Ponticus. So he wrote down this chapbook of these 8 demonic thoughts, but demon meaning more like daemon, like distraction. These
not like evil,
not
more
evil. These are thoughts that distract you from prayer, keep you out of prayer.
Got it.
And he's a monk who's an ascetic monk. Like he's standing in water overnight and subsisting on a loaf of bread. So away from all of his loved ones. He became a monk because he had an affair with a married woman. He was a very wealthy man. He left, went to the desert. So that's the mindset of the person who's writing these down. And so he made this little chapbook with bits of scripture to use against these distracting thoughts. And the 8th thought was sadness within the context of homesickness and attachment, really. So anyway, so this little chapbook of practicos is what it was called. These thoughts sort of made their way through the desert and were passed along to various desert fathers, books. There weren't that many books at the time. And then it wasn't until this 590 AD that Pope Gregory gave a homily in which he said he classified these as the 7 cardinal vices. And in this homily, he said, so just to back up and go on a tiny tangent, Mary Magdalene is referred to in the New Testament as the one from whom Jesus cast 7 demons. But again, some theologians think that's essentially like he's balancing her chakras. He is, restoring wholeness.
Which I like that part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not in the sort of
the negative way.
Yes. Yes. So she's referred to like that a couple of times. And then she's the one to whom Jesus resurrects after his crucifixion. She receives his first teaching. She brings it back to the other apostles and so on and so forth. Her gospel, which is very beautiful, was deemed heretical and cast out. And that was one of the gospels that was recovered, a Gnostic gospel. And in, I think it was the 19th century that they first found some of them. They've since recovered another copy. This is all like Dan Brown, Da Vinci Code stuff. But
right.
People are re-examining her in the context of all of this new information about her. But in the New Testament, she is referred to in this way. And so Pope Gregory said, these are the 7 cardinal vices. These are the same vices that Mary Magdalene is the carrier of.
Mm-hmm.
And Mary Magdalene is the same woman who anoints Jesus' feet with her hair. And that woman is a prostitute. And that's when the whole thing happened.
It all blew up from there.
And Pope Gregory is also lifted. There was an edict against, in the Old Testament, right, prohibit iconography and religious painting. He also lifted that. And so he turns Mary Magdalene into a prostitute, says she carries the 7 cardinal vices, and then she becomes like one of the that idea becomes painted over and over and over and over. You see her in red, clinging at a resurrecting Jesus, and it's essentially like, get away from me, you whore, more or less. That's my translation of the paintings. And then it wasn't until the 80s that the Pope said, we got that wrong. She wasn't actually a prostitute. And then in 2014 or 2016, Pope Francis made her the apostle to the apostles.
Wow.
But as we know, once you have a reputation, Nigma, it can be awfully
I know. It's especially for women, right? Yeah. Like a man can do, and we've seen this in politics, men do some pretty awful things, or, we know some producers, film
Yep.
You know, they've done some pretty bad things, and you know, they could still be making movies for all we
Yes,
know. Like,
nobody
you know,
care.
you know,
Reputational harm though for women is devastating.
it's devastating. True wellness lives in the smallest details: the air you breathe, the water you wash with, and the surfaces you touch. That's why Koala Eco, with their beautiful botanical ranges for home, laundry, body, and even pets, is the only brand I trust. Elegant living without compromise. Visit koalaeco.com. That's KOALAECO.com and use my code HealthyDoc15 for 15% off your first order.
All you have to do is say a woman is bad person, toxic employer, abusive boss, whatever it is, you know, mean. That's it. And a woman will disappear herself. It's enough.
It's enough. Yeah. And it sounds like you've done a lot of what I love in your book is that you do a lot of historical research, and then you bring it back to yourself. And then you also bring it back to how society and where this stems from, right? So that was kind of the history that you were discussing and where that all came from. But like, what happened? Was it just a bunch of men sitting in a room going, okay, this is going to be like this, that's yes, that's no? Like where did all these societal norms come from women and men roles? Because they're just really
insistent and insidious.
Just they're absurd.
And that's why it's so tricky to free ourselves, because it's a bit like a cobweb, and
right.
It's really hard to understand
tangled.
The source. It's tangled. It's confusing. And then again, I think we think of ourselves as these clean slates, right? Come into culture and then choose what we believe and choose who we are. And my point is, oh no, not so fast. We're all informed mostly by the culture in which we live, and we are imbibing all of these ideas about what it is to be a good woman, even if we say, no way, that's not me, I unsubscribe. And that's
right.
So much of the feedback to the book is from women who say, oh, my friend gave me this book and insisted I read it, and I was like, oh, this isn't me. I'm not a good girl. And then I started reading and said, oh, I don't have this. I don't have anything about money. I don't have anything about sloth. Like, that's not me. And then realize, oh my God.
All of us have been down that dusty road.
Yes.
I can guarantee it.
100, like, oh my God.
It's impossible.
It's impossible to, and part of it is it's a collective constraint, right? So to be different in our culture is a bit like exiling yourself.
Yeah.
And we're not kind. Even going back to how we started the conversation, where we were really talking about the conversation about Clinton, was really also about the chapters on pride and envy and what we do to visible women who dare to be seen. We tolerate a little bit of it. And then the minute that there's any sort of misstep, or as soon as we think that they've had enough, or they need to be put back in their place, or taken down a peg or two, we have lots of language. Too big for their britches.
Right.
Tall poppy in a poppy field. We go for them.
Yeah.
There's a collective,
vicious,
unconscious action that strikes these women down, and then we celebrate them when they come back a couple years later. Hashtag free Britney. We buy them merch on their comeback tour.
Right,
we
right.
feel like they've had enough punishment. But
that they've paid the price.
Yeah, and we do it,
and they're good again.
Yeah, we do it, but we do it across. We do it
across the. Yeah,
we do it to female founders. We do it to celebrities. We do it to musicians. We do it within our own communities. It's just this, it's very unconscious. And because it's unconscious, we will then defend against it and find all the reasons why they deserved it. And we will create evidence if it doesn't exist in order to make ourselves feel okay, rather than really understanding this mechanism that's driving us collectively.
And one example that pops out at me, and this is where I think all the listeners can attest to this, how many times have you sat on the couch and been like a sloth? And I love slothing around. Like, I think it's so good for you. I think it's so good. But at the same time, there's a lot of women that are like, nope, I got to be multitasking. I got to check my emails. I got to wash the dishes. I've got to unload the dishwasher. I've got to cook dinner for the kids. Like, they feel guilty for being a sloth, and
100%.
and it's actually good for your health. I tell my patients this all the time, that you have to just sit and do nothing.
Yeah, but the amount of anxiety that it can also drive. I mean, I opened the book, sorry,
I know.
sloth, because it's
Yeah.
so relatable to
To
so
everyone.
many
That's why I brought it up.
women. And
Yeah.
you see it all over social media too, in a way that we're imbibing unconsciously, again, like what it is to do it all, have it all, be it all in the world. And you can say, oh, I cut myself some slack. My house doesn't look like that, but it's still present in your consciousness. And what I found for myself, even after I wrote the book, this is still something that I work on all the time, because I never feel like I'm doing enough for anyone at any time. And I'm consumed by guilt. And I travel a lot for work. And I'm the primary breadwinner of 2 small boys. But, my husband, Rob, who
Yes.
I'll be in Australia and I'll be setting up play dates. And he's like, what are you doing? Like, stop. This isn't helpful. Nobody's
Multitasking mom.
Yeah, but it's my own consuming anxiety and guilt about being absent. And what I also realized too is that I had a lot of anger towards Rob, and which I think is quite normal, of I'm doing so much and I do so much more than you, and after the book went to press, I fell off a horse, as you know.
Yes.
My neck, and ended up, I was completely fine, freakishly, but I had to wear this neck brace, and I had to sit with myself. And I knew all of this. I'd already written a book about it, but I had to sit on the couch for a month.
I
with the neck
remember.
brace on. I couldn't lift anything. I couldn't cook. I couldn't drive. And I was still had my laptop balanced on the canny, and I was still being a freak, but I really couldn't do anything for anyone. And I had to sit with myself, and just the consuming anxiety that I felt about not doing my duty as a mom and a wife. And it was also wild to recognize, oh, right, nobody is asking me to do this. No one, my husband is not saying to me, I expect a well-balanced, highly nutritious meal on the table at 7, preferably cooked by you. I expect all of my laundry to be folded condo style and sorted. He doesn't care at all. And yet here I was, consumed by my inability to do that. And then I really had to take responsibility for myself, which is really what this book is about. If we could take responsibility for ourselves, stop policing ourselves, stop policing each other, really handle the fear and consuming anxiety that comes up for us when we decide, I'm going to stop this. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to play this game anymore. And I'm not going to judge or shame other women as they sort of move towards their freedom. The world will start changing, I think, quite rapidly, because it's self-imposed. It's not, the men are not saying that there aren't, again, men that we wish weren't in power, but it's not, the men are not actively oppressing us in a way that I think we would like to believe that they are, so that we can shift the blame to them. I think so much of this is self-created, and we can change the story, particularly if a lot of us change the story.
I've built my entire clinical philosophy and even wrote a book called Younger Skin Starts in the Gut around one simple truth. If your gut isn't optimal, nothing else works. Genova Diagnostics GI Effects test is the gold standard in functional stool testing, mapping your microbiome, digestion, inflammation, and nutrient absorption with clinical precision. It's a crappy job, but someone has to do it. And no one does it better than Genova. Visit GenovaConnect.com and use my code HEALTHYDOC15 for 15% off your first stool test. I think that's true, and I think that's true particularly for women, because most of my patients are women. And what I see as a common thread, I'll relate it to your book, with all my patients as women, is the repressed anger.
Yes.
And that repressed anger turning into disease. And we look at 80% of autoimmune diseases are in women.
Yeah.
And what is an autoimmune disease? It's your body attacking itself. So it's self-sabotage, self-sabotage, right? So we're self-sabotaging and our immune systems are acting in a way that's also self-sabotaging. And as soon as I discuss that with my patients about what's going on with their underlying anger and, it's so interesting what a patient will tell you, in a consultation when you give them that opportunity, not the 7-minute, doctor-patient visit. Naturopathic doctors, we take, a good hour. So we're talking everything about emotional, physical, it's that psychosomatic connection, the brain and the body connection. And so, I see a lot of women with autoimmune disease, their ANA markers turn around, they become normal when they are able to acknowledge and even just see that this is repressed anger that, as a child, they weren't able to have angry times, right? When you're a kid, you learn to be a good kid because you're angry because you didn't get that ice cream and that's a normal expression to be angry. So repressing that for years, you kind of develop this thought process to go, okay, I need to be good so that I can, get love and I think that turns into autoimmune conditions and it's mainly women. And in particular, I see women of color struggle the most because not only do they have this societal pressure, but then they also have these existing judgments from different society as a whole. So it becomes a whole can of worms.
It's a whole thing. Although, and research suggests that women of color often have more facility with their anger, are actually better at expressing their anger, which is interesting. Even though the stereotypes run.
Right.
And to take it back to sort of this core question of nature versus nurture,
right.
Nature versus culture, which is a big theme of the book. Who are we versus who are we supposed to be? And anger is an incredibly important emotion that is denied to young girls. And some people say boys are more aggressive. I don't know. I cannot say for sure. But I know that it's not that baby girls don't cry and baby boys do, right? There's a certain amount of humanness to all children, and all children are aggressive. They just are. We know this. What happens for boys and girls and is that boys are allowed to be overt with their aggression. We expect boys to push and yell and shout and be rowdy and rambunctious, and girls don't do that.
Right, because they're good.
They're good. And the question is, of course, like, absent all culture, would girls engage like boys? We don't know because you're seeing how other girls are.
So how we know,
as so early, so young. We don't know. But then there's certainly girls that are highly aggressive. But mostly girls they get a lot of points for their compliance. Boys, it doesn't matter. We don't care. We expect them to do shove. And so for girls on the playground, their aggression becomes covert. Whereas boys are allowed to be overt, girls become covert. And that's where you see alliance building, whisper networks, backstabbing, gossip, because the aggression has to go somewhere. It has to come out.
Because you don't see men doing that, right? You don't see men doing the things that women do to other women.
Yeah. And I can speak from just my own limited experience. I've worked primarily with women. I've worked primarily in media, but I worked at a big internet company and it was almost all men. And they would yell. I mean, it was wild, actually. It was a totally different cultural experience. They would get so mad to the point where I would think, are these guys going to hit each other? Like, what has happened? And this is not polite. And then it was over. It would just blow over. And there were people who didn't like each other. And it was known and allowed and expected. Whereas with girls and women, it all becomes covert. In my experience. And it comes out in very ancillary, unhelpful ways, in part because that's the culture it'd be very strange for me to go wild on someone or really say how I feel. Right? And so we all have learned how to traffic it in ways that are covert instead of in direct conflict. And that's the culture that we live in, unfortunately. But to your point about autoimmune, yes, it's anger turned inward.
It is. And even we look at women that are pregnant and they their partners, if they are suffering from depression or anxiety, they tend to deliver prematurely.
Oh, interesting.
You know, and even worse, Elise, the study was done in Sweden that the men, if they were depressed and anxious, and the woman wasn't, and she was obviously pregnant, she would deliver even earlier because we're absorbing the energy of men's anxiety and depression. So we also have to learn as women not to take on that role as nurturing, giving, feeling all the energy. And, you know, we have to shield ourselves and protect ourselves from that. And that's like, I think, another lesson that we need to really be aware of. And I'm aware of it as a healer, as a doctor. You know, it's something that I really have to hone in.
And thinking about sadness, which was dropped from the list of 7 deadly sins,
yes,
included in the book and write about it in the context of men, and the way that to your point, the way that boys and men are cut off from their feelings in this patriarchal culture. They're forced to abandon their feelings and to pick up to become men. We talk about turning boys into men. We don't talk about turning girls into women. But they have to pick up the shield of masculinity. And I would say, too, healthy masculinity is very different than patriarchal masculinity. We're talking about the same thing.
It's toxic, almost toxic.
Yeah. Where it
masculinity
completely divorced from that inner life, the inner femininity. Every human, regardless of gender, has masculine and feminine energy.
Mm-hmm.
And we live in a country or in a culture that deprecates the feminine. And for men, they're so divorced from their own inner feeling, their own inner femininity, that's, I think, why it's projected onto women, why there's so much violence against women, fear of women. What you hear from these sort of far-right manosphere men is this lament that women are responsible for their despair and everything that's wrong with culture. And it's like, well, you're like almost there. But what's actually happening is like your fear of your own femininity is what's at the root of your dismay.
Absolutely.
And so to your point about women needing to process the emotional lives of men, that's what happens in our patriarchal culture. Women overdevelop the feeling capacity because the men aren't carrying it. And the men are weakened because of it. And so part of it is like keeping these boys connected to their feelings, keeping them engaged in their own emotional lives. They can process it themselves and do their own hygiene, and women can process theirs without taking on the world's.
That is so interesting, and it makes me think about the transgender movement and what that's teaching us. You know, like, what if there were no gender? I mean, our genitalia are there, yes, but what if there was no gender? What would it be like?
Yeah. And that's why I think it's such a fascinating conversation, because it's so reductionist, right? Like, you have these parts, therefore this is the role that you're supposed to play and how you're supposed to behave. And I think the trans movement is showing us like it's really not that simple. And trans in that context means across, like to cross gender, but really trans is like transcending. It means above. And I think in many ways that's what we're trying to move towards, like systems of power that feel androgynous, where it's a balance of this interiority and exteriority. And a lot of people talk about masculine, feminine as masculine. And it gets really trippy. The language gets trippy because we attach it to gender. But masculine, healthy masculine energy, I have a lot of it. You have a lot of it, is like our external expression in the world. And it's the directing, ordering, structure, truth that belongs to every human. And then the interiority of femininity is the creativity, the tomb that becomes the womb, the nurturance, the care, sort of the unknown, the mystery. And every human has that as well. And a well-lived life is one of balance. And we each need both throughout the course of a day. That receptivity and then that external expression, the receptivity, external expression. And yet our culture is so engineered right now towards the external, the reasonable, the known, the structure, the order, and it abandons all that feeling and that mystery and that intuition. But they don't belong to genders. They really don't. They're just essential human energies.
From PMS to perimenopause to menopause to postmenopause, I've lived through it all. And through every stage, one thing becomes clear. Hormone fluctuations change how our bodies regulate temperature, especially at night. When your body overheats, even slightly, it disrupts deep, restorative sleep. The kind of sleep your hormones, metabolism, and mood depend on. That's why I can't live without my Rani Lounge pajamas. Their advanced technology activates natural fibers, making the fabric moisture-resistant, naturally fresh, and ultra-breathable, allowing your body to stay cool and regulate temperature the way nature intended. Better temperature control means deeper sleep, better recovery, and a body that feels truly at ease. Whether at home or traveling, staying cool, fresh, and comfortable has never felt so effortless. Go to RaniLounge.com, that's RaniLounge.com, and use my code HealthyDog15 and get 15% off your first order and experience sleep the way it was meant to be. There is such an interesting conversation, and your book really made me think, and I've had to read it twice. I think I'm going to have to read it thrice. I mean, it's a lot going on, and it just, I said the same thing. I'm like, I don't have any of that. And then, as I processed it, I read it on the plane when I was coming back from London, and then I read bits and pieces again. I'd already read it once before, but I really had to read it a second time to really process. It's really brilliant. Like, it really is. I know I got to learn about it before you wrote the book, but it is really, really fascinating. And I think every woman and every man needs to read this book because it really does give you that. If we all make these little changes, we can move society in a way that's safe and loving,
So, and I've wanted or hoped that more men would engage with the book, and they haven't at this.
They haven't. Okay.
I really love it, but I think that Matt,
Why do you say that? Why do you say that?
I don't know. It's either that men aren't that interested in women, whereas women I think are very interested in men.
Okay.
Or that they're scared or think that I'm, setting fire to all men.
Sort of gaslighting them.
Yeah, not at all. That is not my jam. That is not.
Yeah, no, I didn't take that from your book at all.
No, and I love men. I have 2 sons. I'm married.
Yeah.
I have 1 sibling, a man.
Yeah.
I'm more worried about men than I am about women.
Me too.
The other thing, yes, there are things like autoimmune disease that disproportionately affect women, and clearly we haven't achieved parity or equality in our culture. And yes, we're losing rights in a way that is terrifying and disturbing. However, I will say women are amazing. We know this, but women have been outperforming boys in school for a century.
Yeah.
We are out-earning men dramatically in degrees. And watch out. I mean, women are amazing, even in ultra high, even in sports that are highly dependent on endurance. I'm going to get this wrong, but there's some sort of multi-day 265-mile, like ultra marathon.
Mm-hmm.
And women, I think, except 99% of the time, women win.
Right.
And most recently, a woman won who beat the person who came in second, who was a man, by like 14 hours or something. She was already home by the time he finished. And she did it. And she did it while nursing her newborn. Women are amazing. So we're only stopping ourselves.
Right.
We really are.
I think that what you said is really important, because I think we're our worst own enemy, and we need to have this sisterhood of uplifting each other. And it's easy for me to say it, but it's a tough, wild world out there, and you just sort of wonder, like, what is going on? Can we unite women? Because if we can unite women,
Yeah.
I think we're good.
Well, and
The men will follow. They're like really easy
I agree.
to a certain degree. It's us that are a little bit complex
When we need
in
to
a good way.
deal with our own complexity, deal with our envy, diagnose the envy,
Yes,
and then recognize like also how our lives are curtailed by feelings of scarcity, which is the greed chapter.
That's a big one.
Yeah, this idea that there's really only room for one. If she
Got to
has
take
it,
her
I
down.
cannot
Yeah.
do. This is big in our
That's
thinking.
big.
Yes, we see proof of this all over the world.
Yes.
But it's never going to change until we decide, no, she's doing it. Therefore, I can have it too. I'm going to join her. And one of these men can move aside. No problem.
No, we need to start with us, definitely. I mean, it really is. That's what I got out of the book, is that it really does start with us.
It starts.
Are we missing anything, Elise? Did we?
I don't know. I have no idea.
There's just, I know, me too. This conversation has got me into this rabbit hole that I'm like, I don't even know what time it is. I don't know if I've gone over time. They're telling me to wrap it up. This has been an amazing conversation, Elise. I'm so grateful for you to come. I want to cheers to you.
Dying to drink
This vitamin. Cheers, darling.
This is my
Congratulations.
favorite drink.
I love you.
Overdose on
And
this.
no, you can. It's water soluble.
Famous last words.
It's water soluble.
Love and be like, I'm orange.
I wouldn't do that to you, Elise. It's my savior for the cold and winter season. I wanted to give you a gift before we end. It's quite a funny gift. You're going to have a chuckle. You know me, right? What do I do best? What do I like talking about?
Poop.
Yes! See, she knows me so well.
Hoping that you were
No,
going to give me Dante, but no, that's something.
No, I'm not giving you Dante, not you two. You're the first guest that's guessed this.
Really?
Yeah.
That doesn't know you're about to give me a stool test?
How did you know this?
I know you intimately, and you know all of
I-
the body parts. too.
No one has ever guessed this. This is a stool test.
Obviously.
I'm giving you, obviously, well,
This
to the
is
listeners,
talking every year.
this is my love language, giving you a nice gift. And it's going to measure your good bacteria or your bad bacteria. And
Bacteria are good. You haven't learned this from the conversation.
no, there's some bad bacteria in the gut. Listen, but we're going to make them good. And then I've given you some other goodies. You submit this to the lab.
With great pleasure.
You know how to do it. You've done it before. It's because I love you. If we poop healthy, we'll stay friends healthy. You know, that's the way I look at it. Thank you so much for being here. Everybody get her book. Little bloopers there. On Our Best Behavior by Elise Loehnen. The 7 Deadly Sins and the Price Women Pay to Be Good. Go out and get this. It's amazing. Elise, where can people find you
Oh, thank you.
and your book?
My book is available wherever you get your books. I will read it to you on Audible if that's your preference. I'm on Instagram at Elise Loehnen, and I have a podcast called Pulling the Thread that Nigma has been on.
It's amazing.
Thank you. And I have a Substack of the same name, Pulling the Thread, which is a weekly newsletter. You can find it at eliseleunen.substack.com.
Thank you, Elise. You're brilliant. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, buddy.